Point number 8, standard setting and accreditation for school education. The goal of the school education regulatory system must be to continually improve educational outcomes. It must not overly restrict schools, prevent innovation, or demoralize teachers, principals, and students. All in all, regulation must aim to empower schools and teachers with trust, enabling them to strive for excellence and perform at their very best, while ensuring the integrity of the system through the enforcement of complete transparency and full public disclosure of all finances, procedures, and educational outcomes. Point 8.2. At present, all main functions of governance and regulation of the school education system, namely the provision of public education, the regulation of education institutions, and policy making, are handled by a single body, that is, the Department of School Education or its arms. This leads to conflict of interest and excessive centralized concentration of power. It also leads to ineffective management of the school system, as efforts towards quality educational provision are often diluted by the focus on the other roles, particularly regulation, that the departments of school education also perform. 8.3. The current regulatory regime also has not been able to curb the commercialization and economic exploitation of parents by many for-profit private schools, yet at the same time it has all too often inadvertently discouraged public-spirited private philanthropic schools. There has been far too much asymmetry between the regulatory approaches to public and private schools, even though the goals of both types of schools should be the same, to provide quality education. 8.4. The public education system is the foundation of a vibrant democratic society, and the way it is run must be transformed and invigorated in order to achieve the highest levels of educational outcomes for the nation. At the same time, the private philanthropic school sector must also be encouraged and enabled to play a significant and beneficial role. 8.5. The key principles and recommendations of this policy regarding the state school education system, the independent responsibilities within that system, and the approach to its regulation are as follows. A. The Department of School Education, which is the apex state level body in school education, will be responsible for overall monitoring and policy making for continual improvement of the public education system. It will not be involved with the provision and operation of the schools or with the regulation of schools in order to ensure due focus on improvement of public schools and to eliminate conflict of interest. Point B. The educational operations and service provision for the public schooling system of the whole state will be handled by the Directorate of School Education, including the offices of the DEO, BEO, etc. It will work independently to implement policies regarding educational operations and provision. Point C. An effective quality self-regulation or accreditation system will be instituted for all stages of education, including preschool education, private, public, and philanthropic, to ensure compliance with essential quality standards. To ensure that all schools follow certain minimal professional and quality standards, state UTs will set up an independent state-wise body called the State School Standards Authority, SSSA. The SSSA will establish a minimal set of standards based on basic parameters, namely safety, security, basic infrastructure, number of teachers across subjects and grades, financial probity, and sound processes of governance, which shall be followed by all schools. The framework for these parameters will be created by the SCERT in consultation with various stakeholders, especially teachers and schools. Transparent public self-disclosure of all the basic regulatory information as laid down by the SSSA will be used extensively for public oversight and accountability. The dimensions on which information has to be self-disclosed and the format of disclosure will be decided by the SSSA in accordance with global best practices for standard setting for schools. This information will have to be made available and kept updated and accurate by all schools on the aforementioned public website maintained by the SSSA and on the schools' websites. Any complaints or grievances from stakeholders or others arising out of the information placed in the public domain shall be adjudicated by the SSSA. Feedback from randomly selected students will be solicited online to ensure valuable input at regular intervals. Technology will be employed suitably to ensure efficiency and transparency in all work of the SSSA. This will bring down significantly the heavy load of regulatory mandates currently borne by schools. Point D. Academic matters, including academic standards and curricula in the state, will be led by the SCERT with close consultation and collaboration with the NCERT, which will be reinvigorated as an institution. The SCERT will develop a school quality assessment and accreditation framework (SQAAF) through wide consultation with all stakeholders. The SCERT will also lead a change management process for the reinvigoration of CRCs, BRCs and DIETs, which must change the capacity and work culture of these institutions in 3 years, developing them into vibrant institutions of excellence. Meanwhile, clarification of competencies of students at the school leaving stage will be handled by the boards of assessment examination in each state. 8.6. The culture, structure and the system that empower and provide adequate resources to schools, institutions, teachers, officials, communities and other stakeholders will also build concomitant accountability. Each stakeholder and participant of the education system will be accountable to perform their role with the highest level of integrity, full commitment and exemplary work ethic. Each role of the system will have explicitly articulated role expectations and rigorous assessment of their performance vis-a-vis these expectations. The assessment system will be objective and developmentally oriented while ensuring accountability. It will have multiple sources of feedback and assessment to ensure a full view of the performance and will not just be linked simplistically, example, to marks of students. The assessment will recognize that outcomes such as educational attainment of students have simple intervening variables and extraneous influences. It will also recognize that education requires teamwork, particularly at the level of the school. Promotion, recognition and accountability of all individuals will be based on such performance assessment. All functionaries will be responsible to ensure that this development, performance and accountability system is run with high integrity and systematically within their span of control. 8.7. Public and private schools, except the schools that are managed, aided, controlled by the central government, will be assessed and accredited on the same criteria, benchmarks and processes emphasizing online and offline public disclosure and transparency so as to ensure that public-spirited private schools are encouraged and not stifled in any way. Private philanthropic efforts for quality education will be encouraged, thereby affirming the public good nature of education, while protecting parents and communities from arbitrary increases in tuition fees. Public disclosure on the school website and on the SSSA website for both public and private schools would include, at the very least, information on the number of classrooms, students and teachers, subjects taught, any fees and overall student outcomes on standardized evaluation such as the NAS and SAS. For schools controlled, managed, aided by the central government, CBSE in consultation with the MHRD shall prepare a framework. All the education institutions will be held to similar standards of audit and disclosure as a non-profit entity. Surpluses, if any, will be reinvested in the educational sector.